Good evening. I wanted to talk about two horses that came in tonight. One came in and he walked a little bit more ahead of me than he should. He turned his nose in the direction, like as if he was looking outside on a circle. And then when he found resistance, which was the end of the line on his nose, he proceeded to offer a little nudge. It was not an aggressive thing. It wasn't like, how you see some horses, they really, give a big pull and think that they're going to get a hold of their line or their reins, depending on what they're, pulling on. It wasn't to that degree. It was a nudge. So what I do in a case like that, I always assess whether or not something can be politely discussed or if something needs to be corrected. In that case, something like that, I believe needs to be corrected. I don't want to have a discussion. I don't want to gently tug back and suggest that he put his nose back straight or even slightly tipped towards me. I don't want to have him then suggest that, no, I want it to come this way. So I don't want to have that little kind of tug-of-war game. That's one of the things that's a manners thing, and a lot of times I won't let manners be up for discussion. So I don't allow that to be up for discussion. So in his case, what I did was I gave him a very strong yank on the line where I gave back, and then I took that slack, and it was with the intention of being a pull back in my direction. Now, I could have left it there because obviously I, got the horse to put his head back the way it should be. But I always test that my correction was effective in correcting the broken part. Because if we're just yanking on our horses for every little thing they do, it may not be an effective correction for the part that was broken. So then what I do is I test my correction. So then I will take a gentle feel on his nose to see if I have a responsive horse now. Like, can I take a gentle feel and have him move to that gentle feel? I want my horses to be very light on the line. I want my horse to be very light in the reins. I don't want my horses leaning on the reins. I don't want my horses leaning on their lines. I don't want my horses to ever find resistance, like get to the end of the line and find resistance, feel pressure, and then not back off of it. I don't want my horses to ever find pressure and then push harder on pressure. So like in a case like that, that was a correction. There was no discussion. Now, the next horse was Katie. She had decided that I was walking Katie and Tyson was where he was supposed to be, which my hip to his shoulder. And Katie decided that my hip to her flank was appropriate. Like, she went well ahead of us. I said her name, and then I said, hey. So I said her name so that Tyson was off the hook. This wasn't about him. My horses know their names. And then I said, hey. And then I said, hey, twice. So those are my horses' two warnings that have no physical reprimand at all attached to it. But on the third hey, it's no different than the correction I made on Ritz, which was a very strong, make my point kind of correction. So that, again, is where I'll move towards so if her flank is here, I'll take a step towards the girth. I'll allow the lead rope to get slack between her nose and my hand, and then I will flip the rope up and yank it down as if I'm trying to get a kink out of the hose, and the kink is up by her chin. Okay? The intention is to have that really cause that snap to move in an abrupt way. Now again, same thing. I'm going to test, was my correction an effective correction for the thing that was broken? What was broken? My horse was moving too far ahead. She was warned twice that there's going to be a correction. So twice she had an opportunity to respond to the word hey, which she knows. She knows it was her because she heard her name, so she knew that was something she was supposed to respond to. So the third time, she was expected to be reprimanded. Now, again, test it. Allow her to get ever so slightly further ahead, not by trying to totally set her up, but just when it happens. Because if she's in that mode, she's in that we're gonna go eat, I'm in that mode. So it's real likely that even with a strong correction, you didn't suddenly make them change their mind about what was their driving force. So there's a chance that she's going to get even just ever so slightly ahead again. So then I would say, hey, I would say it as if we never had a situation before. I would say it as if I was originally asking her to respond to her hey cue, and my hey cues are, half halt cues. They're not ho. I don't want her to stop moving, but I do need her to half halt to get back in position with me. So that's what my hey cue is. If she doesn't half halt and ease back to where she should be, then I have an opportunity to say, okay, that was not an effective correction for the thing that was broken. We're going to have to do it again. Of course, in this case, it was an effective correction. I don't think, had I just been yanking on my horses for the things that they did wrong, if I didn't test to make sure that what I corrected, they made that connection. I want them to walk away going, I stand corrected, period. But they know what they were corrected for. You see way too often horses are being just kind of yanked on for every little thing that they do, but the correction always seems to be the same. Especially a horse that has a chain across its nose. What's the most common thing you see people do when a horse has got a chain across its nose? Is they yank, But first of all, the only thing I can think yanking down on a horse for me would be a horse that's going up. I don't see any other reason to yank down on a horse's nose. But if that's how you're going to correct for everything that they do wrong, your horse can never make the connection. Your correction is not effective for the broken part. So always make sure that the pressures that you offer in correction make sense to the horse of what they've been corrected for. So my horses have all been taught that hey command. Okay, they all know what that means. They all have been taught it where they were given a word, hey, nothing, a word, hey, nothing, hey, a little bit stronger stated, and a physical correction. Next time, the word, hey. By the third time you do this with your horses, so you do that as a teaching, then the second time you test it, no, they didn't really understand it, so there's still another physical correction. The third time they've got it. I'm going to say 9.5 out of 10 times they'll have it by the third time. And then you have it installed. I consider things like that installed. So my hey cue is installed. Now, sometimes it gets broken. Sometimes they lose their mind, they lost their mind for a minute. And then we just remind them, and then we move on. I don't set out to drill it more. I just, hey, it looked a little broken, let's fix it. Okay, looks fixed, now we're gonna just move on, like it never happened. I don't let my horses get under my skin, and you really can't, because they live very much in the moment. Like, I could go in her stall right now, and she has no memory of our issue. Like, my interaction with her in this moment is about this moment, not about 5 minutes ago. And that's one of the greatest lessons you can learn with horses is not to hold a grudge. No matter how much they make you mad, don't hold a grudge. And make sure that any corrections that you make are effective for the broken part. Make sure that it makes sense. And then test it. Make sure that if you had to make a correction, that it was an effective correction. Test it. And if it wasn't, if it didn't work, then fix it again.